Dolphins fans, what's going on? Ben Morgan, Fins Up Network. Dolphins on the right side of the scoreboard today in week 2 of NFL. Houston Texans 28-3. But like we've talked about throughout preseason, and then especially in the game preview shows, I don't care about the win-loss. Yes, it is nice to see your team win. Yes, it is nice to hold the team to 3 points, especially when you got a brand new defensive coordinator, especially when you hardly even scored the game before. So yes, I'll take the win. But at the end of the day, player development, who's lining up and with what units, I want to see which guys are stepping up and making the plays when their numbers are called. And we saw a bit of that today. So we're going to break down the action. We're going to talk some top takeaways from the game, mix in some notes on specific plays, specific players. Before I get to my top takeaways, gotta hear from you. Drop your thoughts on the Miami Dolphins' second preseason game in the comments. Let's carry on the conversation there. But my top takeaway, which is I think might be quite a few people's top takeaway from this game, is, man, I'm glad that we didn't sit the starters today. Because if you look at, obviously, Tua being able to play in this game, and thinking back to when's the last time Tua Tagovailoa played in a meaningful NFL game? Not that preseason is overly meaningful, but you get what I'm going at. Christmas Day, Green Bay Packers. It's been a while since we've seen him. So whether it was today or whether it was in week 3 of preseason, we needed to knock the rust off a little bit. We needed to get him back in the game, get that confidence built a little bit. And thank God we did. Because how this game started, let's just say you don't give him these reps, and then the offense looked as rusty as it did to open this game. You don't want to start week 1 that way. You don't want to start week 1 giving the Chargers the ball at the 6-yard line. That is not how I envision week 1 going. Because on that first play, yes, Tua rolls out. He's rolling to the left. Terrible decision. Throws it back over the middle. Denzel Perryman's coming right into that lane. It's a throw that I'm guessing hurt for the game. You go back and ask him, yeah, that's on him. That's probably a bad throw. You don't want to do that. And kind of doubling down on making matters worse is the second drive when you get the ball back at your own 6-yard line or whatever it was. You start with a Connor Williams high snap, which is kind of something that we've got to work on. We're going to talk about that a little bit more as well, but we get the ball to Mostert, damn near get a safety. So now we're backed up to our 1-yard line. We end up getting out of that, but just a few plays later, it's Tua under pressure again on that tight end screen. I believe that was the play where he actually got hit. You saw a little bit of that jiu-jitsu training come into play there with him kind of rolling. His head didn't even come anywhere near the turf. You can tell that is already paying off. But ultimately, once things settled down a little bit, you got that rust shook off, knocked off. Tua did get hit, probably a little bit good for him to get out there and be like, you know what, I can survive these hits. You bounce back with a 14-play drive on a Raheem Mostert touchdown, 93-yard drive, and especially if you count them going back to their own 1-yard line after that bad snap, it's essentially kind of like a 99-yard drive on what ends up being really kind of like your first official drive of the season if you don't count that interception. And I thought the announcer of the game kind of said it perfectly. The offense just settled in. That's what it took. And I'm glad that we saw it in preseason. Like I said, we'll see what happens in week 3 of preseason here next week. But man, that needed to happen. You got to get that stuff shaken off before the regular season starts. So that is far and away my top takeaway. The next takeaway that I have, and this is the same sort of takeaway that I had following the Falcons game, but it's the running back involvement. And in that post-game video that I did, I asked, you know what, was that a fluky thing? Was that just something we just happened to do that game? Or is that going to carry over? Is that going to carry over to week 2 of the preseason? Or is that going to carry over into the regular season? Well, we saw it, and it did, at least to week 2 of the preseason, it did. And that was once again, yeah, we had Raheem Mostert, but no Jeff Wilson this week as well. But the team finished the game with 38 carries. If you remember Dolphins football last week, we weren't running the ball 38 times too often. 205 rushing yards. That's 5.4 yards per carry. In the first half alone, much like last week against the Falcons when we had the majority of our success on the ground, 19 carries, 140 yards, and that touchdown. 7.4 yards per carry. And yeah, a lot of that was because of Savon Ahmed. Last week, we saw Myles Gaskin get more of the carries. This week, it was Ahmed. Myles Gaskin looked like he wasn't even in shoulder pads today. I think he was on the list of people that weren't playing kind of due to like a little bit of an injury. He went 12 for 99. 88 of those yards came in the first half. Chris Brooks, 11 for 47. Man, that dude runs hard. And yes, he also added a touchdown on a screen from Skylar Thompson to make it 28-3. Raheem Mostert goes 6 for 30. He had the touchdown. Devon Achane goes 6 for 27. But that run of the game, we talked about Ahmed. 65-yard run to set up the Skylar Thompson to Braxton Berrios touchdown right before halftime, making the score 21-3. But I did a little number crunching at halftime because I'm like, man, it's been a lot of running backs in general. Tua's drive, he hit a couple of the wide receivers and tight ends and whatnot. But in the first half, Miami Dolphins running backs accounted for 172 of 258 first half yards. That's 67% of the yards. And what have we talked about? It's like the Dolphins kind of ignored the running backs and the running game in particular a lot down the stretch last year when we thought maybe they should do more of it. And now we have these guys and we've got speed, and health is a little bit of a concern now, which we're going to second. But we want to see that involvement, and do they get involved in the receiving game? And do we stick to the run? Well, so far through 2 preseason games, we have seen that. But I do want to talk about that injury of note, because Devon Achane was checked out in the blue medical tent, ended up getting carted back to the locker room. I watched the replay of the play. I haven't seen anything since the game health-wise, so maybe something new has happened by now. Looked like a shoulder. Looked like he kind of got crunched down there on that shoulder. So we'll have to keep our eye out on that one as well. We don't need to be losing any more damn running backs. So the third and final takeaway before I get into some plays is just kind of the quarterback rotation in general, because Tua was out there for those first 2 series. And then it was basically the Skylar Thompson show. Now, Mike White, if you missed the game, he did get some reps, but that's because Skylar Thompson was removed by the independent concussion spotter. So he came in for a little bit, but while he was in, it also looked like at one point in time, he might have gotten hit a little bit too. So it's going to be kind of interesting to note that, because I don't know if that was by design, that Mike White just wasn't going to get that much run, or maybe he did get dinged up a little bit and that's the reason he didn't go in. But regardless enough, or I should say this, it's interesting that Mike White got the first half last week. So you kind of think like, well, he's that clear-cut quarterback too. So did the coaching staff just want to see Skylar with more of the regulars, or at least not the very last guys that are in the game, kind of like he did last week? Or was this just going to happen to be how the rotation played out? It's hard to look into something a little bit too right now, just because we don't know what happened to Mike White, but curious to see kind of if this Skylar Thompson overload was on purpose, when Mike White was, in my opinion, the better quarterback last week. Skylar, though, I will say this, he did look much, much better today. Still under quite often, and obviously not all of that's on him. Sometimes, yes, he does hold on to the ball a little bit too long. But, man, he ended up going 15 of 22, 157 yards, 3 touchdowns. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle the quarterback rotation next week. And then I'm going to wrap up with a few random plays that stood out to me, because we talked about this early with Connor Williams and the bad snap. Well, he ended up having a second bad snap, which completely killed the timing of a play with Skylar Thompson. Ended up leading to the 1 sack that he took, but man, it was killer. I mean, these things are just drive enders. You lose 14 yards on that. I don't want to say it's the same as a turnover, but geez, it might as well just fall in the same kind of category. Another injury of note, Robert Jones. Don't want to see any more damn offensive linemen going down. He got assisted to the locker room in the first half. Not ideal, obviously. Teron Armstead already being down. Liam Eichenberg wasn't playing again today. He's got some sort of nagging deal. And Isaiah Wynn, while he had his moments today, just didn't look quite as good, didn't look quite as consistent as he did last week. One more negative thing, false starts continue to be an issue. These pre-snap penalties, man, it's going back to last year and we keep harping on it, and Mike McDaniel keeps harping on it, but then we get to games and nothing changes. 2 of them on the first drive of the second half, and then back-to-back false starts on the second drive of the second half. And I believe Keon Smith was flagged for 2 of them. I don't even know what he was doing, just falling forward on that one. So at the end of the day, I'm glad it is like clear-cut backups are the ones that are committing these penalties. Still not great overall. Got to clean that up. Channing Tindall only credited with 2 tackles today compared to the double digits that he had last week against the Falcons. but he did have very nice quality back-to-back coverage plays. The first one, the running back got the ball swung out to him. Channing Tindall would have just completely lit up Mike Boone had he have caught it, but that was a nice play where he was right there impacting the running back's ability to catch the ball. And then on the second one, stuck right with the tight end, turned right with him, got his hand in the way for the pass breakup as well. So a couple of nice reps there for Tindall, who didn't get quite as much action in today's game, but still looked pretty good in some of the reps that he got. Elijah Higgins didn't have any catches today. However, he did a nice job lead blocking for Savon Ahmed on one of his runs that went for a first down. On the other side of that, unfortunately, he was beat pretty bad on a block later when Savon Ahmed lost yards on the carry. So a little bit of a mix in the blocking department from Elijah Higgins. Also, you could tell the Eric Azukanma was being called upon a lot to kind of go in motion and being one of those key lead blockers as the game was wearing down and we're running the ball a little bit more. But man, he's not scared to get in there and mix it up blocking as well. I should have talked about this a little bit earlier. I got to love the way the defense reacted after Tua's interception. To hold Houston to go 4 and out, they ended up not kicking the field goal. They just went for it, obviously, preseason. But to be able to get that stop, give the offense the ball back, and then the offense responds with that touchdown, got to love how your defense reacted there. David Long, with one of the better plays from the linebacker unit today, had a huge tackle for loss on Dameon Pierce, completely read the play, shot the gap. Dameon Pierce came nowhere near breaking that tackle. That was probably the highlight of the day, or at least one of them on the defensive side of the ball. Had another stop I think it was a drive maybe later after just a short game as well. So a couple of nice reps from David Long. And the last one I got, loved this play by Mitchell Aguda. It was that textbook, follow the ball carrier down the line of scrimmage because the run was going the opposite way. He went straight down the line of scrimmage, was able to get that running back tackled at the line of scrimmage on a 3rd and 1. So that is good stuff to see from an undrafted free agent edge rusher that's literally playing the run game, which is the more unsung things that we see from that position that are a little bit harder to do. Good to see him doing that. I've got to apologize on one thing because I didn't remember to give my my viewer comment shout out from the pregame show. I had a lot of good nominations and I was ready to call one out and I completely forgot to look one up when I was doing the prep for this. So I will do better on that next time. But those are my takeaways. Let's hear yours. Let's carry on the conversation in the comments section. That's what I've got for today's game, Dolphins fans. And until next time, fins up.